A good friend of mine was heading to the Pittsburgh airport to take an early flight out to Chicago one very blustery and wintry morning. There'd been a major snowfall the night before, and he was praying that he would get a park somewhere near the terminal. As he came around the corner of that first bay, there was a woman obviously departing. She had begun to clean off the 6 to 8 inches of snow that buried her car that night. My friend stopped behind her and offered to help. When she was certain that he wasn't going to mug her, she agreed, and together they cleaned off the car. When they had finished, she graciously thanked him, but then added, "I know this was really all about you. You just wanted the parking spot." We live in a world where it is increasingly more all about you and all about me. We see the world from only our perspective, what it means for us. It is here where we left our story off on Tuesday. God's people had escaped the isolation and slavery in Egypt. They had escaped the clutches of Pharaoh and his mighty army, and now were headed to the promised land. Along the way, their understanding and their sense of community had become unraveled, and it was increasingly becoming a community that was all about me. We ended with the story of manna, where that all about me-ness had led to a diseaseness. It is here that God offers Moses and the people a gift: the Torah, the law. It is almost impossible for us as 21st century Americans to understand the Jewish concept of Torah as a gift, because we make law something else. We make it punitive, we make it protective of the individual rights. In a sense, we make it all about us. But the Torah was all about community. It was a gift from God in how to live together as the people of God. In essence, it was a fence, a boundary, a guideline to life together, that all might be safe, that all might be kept as one. As such, the law focuses on issues of economics, on hygiene and cleanliness, on hospitality, how to treat not only one another, but the resident alien and the foreigner that lives in your midst, those that are different than you. There is high premium on offering hospitality, because the hospitality that you offer today may be returned to you tomorrow. And hospitality in the Middle East in those days was a matter of life and death. Contrary to popular belief, there is very little in the Torah that has to do with sex. Oh well. We want it all about us anyway. It is that gift of the law that begins to shape this unraveling community back into a people of God, who will eventually enter the promised land and become a great and powerful nation, until they try to make the law all about them. And it comes unraveled. and they find themselves again in the wilderness. Whenever God's people find themselves in the wilderness, the first thing they do is to reclaim that law, that Torah. It is one of the shining moments in their time in Babylon in exile. It will be the hallmark of Judaism coming out of the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. And along with some other reasons, it will be the defining break between Christians and Jews. Because part of what happens in that scattering of the Jews is a refocusing of the law on me. And it becomes the way of maintaining a relationship with God as well as with one another. And for this, that was beyond Christian understanding. But more about that on another day. What would happen if we began to look at many of the discussions we're having today in terms of an understanding of God's law as being a gift to community and not just about us? What if we looked at wearing a mask not as an imposition on my personal choice, but rather a gift that I offer to those who live around me? The same can be said of social distancing or any of the other restrictions. How do we begin to see them differently? Or if I am pulled over in a residential area for driving 55 miles an hour, is it really punitive? Or have I forgotten to take care of the community in which I live? The speeding laws are designed to protect those who live on those streets, that they may be safe, and in some cases, their vehicles safe. Well, what if we look at some of those thornier issues, like the Second Amendment? Not as a question of whether or not it's okay for me to carry a gun or own a gun, but to ask bigger questions about that, like why? And how do we use those weapons responsibly? Let alone begin to tackle the thorny question of what was the Second Amendment really designed for? Was it really all about me and my gun? Or what if we look at making laws differently? Instead of trying to make sure that my position gets the vote, or that my back gets scratched, that we begin to look at legislation for the benefit of the whole community, for the whole state, for the whole nation. It's a thought. Who am I to say? But I would be remiss if I didn't finish the story. You see, while Moses and God are having the summit conference up on Mount Sinai, and God is handing over the Torah, Aaron and the people have melted down the fineries, the jewelry, the metalwork, the gold, the silver that they had stolen from Egypt on their way out of town. And they had fashioned a golden calf, a new God that would answer to them. For there is always that part of us that really wants it to be all about me. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. This is my prayer, O God of all this kingdom. Your kingdom come, on earth your will be done. O God, be lifted up till all shall serve you, and hearts united learn to live as one. So hear my prayer, O God of all the nations. Myself I give you. Let your will be done.